This week on the BackTable podcast.
No, I did it at the very beginning. Aaron used to have me listen through the episodes I did and make it sounded okay. And I listened to it and I was like, this is not what I sound like. This is the worst sound.
I can't listen to mine
I don't know
either.
how my wife lives with me if this is what I actually sound like. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I won't listen to any of my episodes. You just sound really different than you think you sound.
I agree with that.
100%.
You're right. You actually don't need to improve. You're fantastic as is.
Hey,
There's actually not much room
That's
for
what I try
improvement there, to be
That's what I
honest.
You
try
know,
to tell
Mike,
people.
like people ask me, like, they're like, is Mike Barraza like actually that funny in real life? They ask me, and
It's
then
like, no, he's
yeah,
boring.
he definitely is. He's one
Yeah.
of the most hilarious people ever.
He's boring.
So I
He's boring.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the BackTable podcast. This is the 500th episode. So I'm just going to jump into it because we've got the original hosts. We got Chris Beck, Baheti, Sabeen Dhand, Mike Barraza, and our producer, Kieran. Welcome, everybody, to the 500th
The
episode.
OG team.
Thank
OG
you.
team.
The OG team.
I'm kind of used to being
That's
the
right.
person who says that.
it's weird being on this side.
Yeah, right? It is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. I feel welcome.
So we're gonna jump into it. We're gonna talk a little bit about, first off, Chris, since you and I did the very first episode on bone marrow biopsies,
Yes,
did you ever think that we would reach 500 episodes?
absolutely not. I mean, I think I was hoping like you would tell it a little bit, but like the origin story of BackTable is like we originally just started the podcast to promote the real BackTable product, which was like device reviews for interventional radiology devices. And so, I mean, like the whole reason we started doing podcasts was just because we thought we could drive a little bit more traffic to the website or to the app. Like we had an app. And then it just turned out that the podcast took off and the app, I would say it less took off. AKA
It
is
did
now
not take
shelved.
off at all.
Yeah. AKA now shelved indeterminately.
Yeah, I mean, people don't want to sit down and write reviews around devices, which I don't blame them. But that was, like you said, that was the original concept. And then, like, I think we lucked out in that
Yes.
podcasting kind of took off at the same time that we were making a podcast, right? And you look at podcasting now, it's like, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but it's like a mainstream media, outlet. Like it's up there with radio and television when you look at the numbers, especially with the younger generation. You look at generation, what is it, Z and Alpha? Alpha is like a little bit younger, but those guys are listening to twice the amount of podcasts that the rest of the population are listening to, which is great for us,
There's no doubt. Like we rode a wave. Like it was kind of like where luck met opportunity. I mean, like I don't know about you. Like I was even kind of I was an early podcast enthusiast. Like I consume a lot of podcasts, so I was kind of into the idea. On top of you were kind of into podcasts. I mean, like you consumed a lot of podcasts, and then right?
I did not. That was not true. I did not. At the time when Anish pitched it to us, you were the only one who knew anything about podcasts. Like you were like, oh yeah, like you listened to Serial and all that stuff. I was like, I thought of I thought of Howard Stern. He always made fun of podcasters around that time. Like there's always like B actors. You know what I'm talking about, Kieran? Like there's always like B actors that had podcasts, and Howard Stern was just like ragging on him, like that's not real radio.
I listened
And
to
so
like
I kind of
music
had that perspective.
podcasts. I like
Aaron's-
music.
Aaron's a
podcasts.
big radio guy. Always been big into radio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have read
Aaron,
that
what's your
radio
favorite
wave.
radio station?
Whatever Howard Stern's on, Sirius 100, right? Yeah.
Well, what I'd also say, so yeah, we were lucky, but also like, I mean, the if we went back to like the BackTable mission, I mean, it still kind of fit. I mean, it was definitely a pivot, but like we just wanted to like get good, high quality medical education to interventional radiology, and we thought there was a bit of a disconnect between what we were seeing that of like the conventional education that was being put out. Not that it wasn't great, it was just there was a gap. There was like an added need that wasn't being met, and then like what people needed from private practice. And then it just so happens that like there's a wave of podcasting that we kind of fell into, but I still think it kind of fit the mission of BackTable.
Yeah. and we also kind of lucked out in like that technology allowed us to do these remote recordings and stuff like that. Like, do you guys remember Uber Conference that we used to use back like in the beginning?
Yes.
What's Uber Conference?
Oh,
yeah, that might have been before you came on Alley.
Okay.
Yeah, before you Zoom. And then way before Riverside. Okay. But yeah, it was like this crappy like teleconferencing, app that we used. There was like the holding music. Do you remember, guys? Do you remember that?
Yes.
The holding music. Yes. It was like a song.
I do.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Actually, I liked the song. I kind of thought the song was not bad.
I remember the first recording I did was with Stephen Hunt, and I did it on my cell phone in my front yard.
I remember you saying that.
I had
oh God.
I had to have pauses because there was like lawn mowing equipment down the street that was making a lot of noise, but like I wasn't getting good signal upstairs. And I did like this whole thing in my front yard.
Karen's like crying right now. He's like, that was
because the thing about Uber Conference, there's no separating of the tracks. So even if like you wanted to pause talking, that's still bleeding into whatever the guest was saying. Can't pull it out.
Yeah. No, it was. We can all agree the first 100 episodes basically could go into the trash bin, and nobody's gonna. I mean, they were like up until like
I remember
the last time
to it.
They were just so bad. I think although when we did
the audio
episode
was
100,
bad.
the audio, sorry,
the
the audio
content was great. I mean, the content was amazing,
golden,
but the
evergreen
production quality.
So yeah, Allie, I kind of want to, because you were one of those people that kind of came to us like, hey, I really like this. I want, can I help out? What was it about it, those early ones that kind of hooked you, so to speak?
Oh man,
yes.
I win.
Guest experience.
Yes,
not one but two guests. I'm
That's
not
what I'm
solo
talking
parenting,
about.
believe
That's
it
what
or
I'm
not.
talking about.
I actually
Come
have a
join
spouse
us.
here that is managing these children. All right, maybe cut this part out. I'm gonna take these guys away.
No way.
No, we have to keep it. This is true podcasting.
Dude, no, it is. I mean, this is life, and like people
This
have
is life.
jobs and children, and I mean, I don't know how many times we've gotten interrupted on episodes where somebody gets a call from the hospital,
Yes.
or something like that, and like that. I mean, I had to cancel an episode like an hour before last week or a few hours before last week because I ended up having to take call. Like it just happens.
Yeah.
I'm proud of Allie to be able to stand up and show that she's actually wearing pants. Like there's not it's not infrequent when like I have to like get up and I'm like, hold on, let me just like turn the camera off before I walk in the foreground.
So Allie, I'm going to go back to that question for you. What was it about those early episodes that made you want to get involved with BackTable?
I guess I should start with like how I even found out about BackTable, and I have to credit my co-fellow Rohit Kapila. He was like sitting next to me in the reading room one day and was like, hey, there's this podcast, and he's a little bit younger than me, so I think he's like cooler and hip and like understands more Gen Z stuff than I do. And so he showed it to me, and I was like, this is the coolest because I can just listen to this. I now instantly know more about a topic than I did before I listened to it. It only took me like 45 minutes and I didn't have to read anything. I didn't have to like read through some article. And so I just liked how like it was snippets and tidbits, and it was really high value or like high yield to listen to a podcast, especially with some of the early topics when you kind of did them based on surrounding procedures. So awesome for early career trainees. And then I think what happened was you did an episode about tips, or you did the tips series, right? With Emmett Linsky. Remember that Tips University?
I mean,
yeah,
think about
that's my favorite.
Tips University
That's my
all
favorite.
the time.
Tips University was
Very proud
pretty
of that
dope.
piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think you were like, yeah, and we should have somebody on here talking about Bertos. And I was like, that's like super interesting because that's something I've had to research a ton recently for my own clinical practice. And I reached out to I think Saher, and I was like, do you want to talk about this? He was like, sure, whatever. And then I reached out to you, Aaron. I think I cold called you and I was like, hey, can we just do this? And you were like, yeah, sure. And that's even now I think is still a really popular episode, the Berto episode.
Absolutely. And I really wanted to get Saher back on because he came on originally and the audio was so bad. He sounded like he was underwater. Do you remember that one, Sabeen?
Yeah.
Or wait, I forget who's the host. Was it Mike or Sabeen?
No, it wasn't me.
It was Sabeen.
I think it was me. You tell me about it after.
Yeah. And I just was like, man, I want to redeem like ourselves with Saher because people were probably like, it was like listening to something like nails on a chalkboard.
I didn't think it was so bad. I thought the content was really good. I listened to it.
Content was good, yeah. But and this isn't the BRTO one. It was
it was something else. It was I remember doing one with Sahar. I forget the topic.
The New York Times article.
No, that was
this is
way
earlier.
Yeah.
Oh,
this is like episode like 45 or EndoLeaks.
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 Oh,
yeah. It was like EndoLeaks 1 and 2.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that was the problem. Was the content was so good. I was like, we need to do. That's one of those like milestones for me. Like, we gotta like do way better than this, right? Because there were some other podcasts at the time, and I was just like, we got to make sure that our audio quality continues to improve. And that to me stands out as one of the episodes where I was just like, it's just got to be way better than this, you know. But I'm glad that didn't deter Ali from reaching out to us, and because. Yeah, I mean, you were a great addition, and kind of like completed the team. Yeah.
Now I'm that BackTable lady, right, Sabeen? Are you that BackTable lady?
It's that BackTable lady. That's what people would say at West Angel. Are you that BackTable lady?
Yeah. All right. So next question I want to ask was, Sabeen, how, like, you know, we're going back to like EndoLeak episode, right? Like those are like pre-episode 50. How is your approach to hosting, or even the show's format, like, has it evolved since you first started hosting? Like, how have you felt like you've improved, or, you know, the way you approach an episode?
I feel like all the episodes that I tend to do, I'm very interested and do the topics. So I'm very like, I'm actually learning during the hosting. Like when I'm asking questions, I'm actually asking for myself. And that's becoming more and more prominent now as I'm hosting. And that's, I guess, what makes BackTable what it is, right? Like we're asking the questions that people can't ask during a conference or anything like that. And I don't know, I think I like to get closer and closer and do like icebreakers with the hosts just to make them more comfortable. And that's what I'm doing these days now. That in the beginning, I wasn't sure how to like approach that, but now it's just very easy.
Yeah. Like, I think that because you guys all know this, and we've talked about this before, is it takes a solid 10, 15 minutes for everybody to just kind of chill out, like nerves to settle before you get comfortable with each other. And Mike, you and I have talked about this also, like how it can be difficult with co-hosting too. We were just talking about that John Pavlis episode where you and I think, had co-hosted for the first time. And I listened back, and you can see where we're like almost talking over each other sometimes.
I do. What's your take on?
Well, you and I have always talked about, like, it's really tricky to co-host. And what do you like to do it solo?
Co-guest is hard. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because you know, you react to things differently. You know, you could take an answer in numerous different directions, which way you want to go, and then sometimes you're gonna want to ask the same thing. Like it's hard.
I think Mike has co-hosted with the most people, right? Like, Mike is the official co-host guy.
He's a co-host guy.
Yeah, I talk over people though. You just said that. Like, I'll just start running with it.
That's funny.
Well, yeah, because it can get, and Chris and I talked about this too, like it can get awkward sometimes when you both want to jump in, and you kind of have to come up with a game plan ahead of time. Like, hey, who's going to ask this, and so forth. Otherwise, it can get kind of clumsy. So do you like, I guess my question was like, do you like co-hosting, or do you like to do them by yourself, Mike?
Yeah, I like both. I think they're fun. I know it's fun. I mean, you just talk to more people, and they're kind of funny. I start making a lot of jokes in there. I enjoy it, but
I think you're funny either way. I think,
yeah. I would say Mike's the funniest.
I think so.
Host.
100%.
I would vote for that too. 100%.
Well,
hands down.
You asked Sabeen how, you know, he's evolved as a
podcast
host, and I haven't. No, I'm dead serious. I am no better now than I was several years ago, and so I'm sorry.
Well, I think part of the issue is you don't listen to your own episodes.
Fuck no.
Oh, I don't listen to mine. I don't listen to mine.
I got all the information. Why would I
I'll
listen to it?
never. No, I did it at the very beginning. Aaron used to have me listen through the episodes I did and make sure it sounded okay. And I listened to it and I was like, this is not what I sound like. This is the worst sound.
I can't listen to
mine I don't know
either.
how my wife lives with me if this is what I actually sound like. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I won't listen to any of my episodes. You just sound really different than you think you sound.
I agree with that.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
you do,
I
but
can't
you
listen
get
to
over
my
that.
episodes.
No, you don't.
Yeah. You get over it, and then you're like, okay, I could have maybe said this better, or I could have phrased this better, or I say a lot, just learning, improving. That's my only suggestion. But you're right. You actually don't need to improve. You're fantastic as is.
Hey,
There's not much room for improvement there, to be honest.
Mike, people ask me, they're like, is Mike Barraza actually that funny in real life? They ask me, and then
no, he's boring.
He definitely is. He's one of the most hilarious people ever.
He's boring.
He's boring.
No, not at all. We script that whole thing. He doesn't
we
know
hate
any
that
jokes.
guy. That guy sucks.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. So Michael doesn't listen to his own podcast. Allie, Sabeen, Aaron, do y'all listen to y'all's own?
I don't. I should now.
I don't unless there's if I'm doing a case or something and I'm like, oh man, I did this episode with X a couple years ago and I can't remember exactly what they said. I go and listen to that, but I don't make a habit of listening to my own. Kind of the same thing, as Mike said. I don't like how I sound on the microphone. It doesn't justify with my sense of self.
Yep, I feel the same way. I think I think most people feel the same way. I think Aaron might be the only one who contemporaneously listens to the podcast that. You will listen to your podcast when it comes out, the one that you hosted, right, Aaron?
For the most part, yeah. Because I'm trying. A lot of times, I'll be like, that one just didn't feel like it went that great. So I'll listen back and be like, okay, how can I improve this? Or I'm also editing them, so I'm like, okay, I sound like a douche there. I need to cut that out, or that was not a good transition. Let me clean that up. So that's part of the reason why, because I also have the power to edit. So I think if you guys, if you did, you might go back and listen and be like, okay, I want to make this sound better, because that's the power of editing, as Kieran knows. Well, I wanted to ask Kieran a question actually, because we've done a bunch of Kieran, how do you think the show's evolved over time from a producer's standpoint?
Good question. I think...
Kieran, can you back up and tell maybe if there's some people in the BackTable audience who maybe aren't as familiar with your role in BackTable? Will you give us the history of Kieran Gannon?
So I joined BackTable in August of 2020 in the throes of the pandemic. And yeah, I remember Aaron sending me, I don't know what episode it was, some episode to edit. It was recorded on Uber Conference, and me being like, I can't do anything with this. There's nothing I can edit. I can slap the music on the beginning or the end or something, but there's nothing I can really do to make this better. So that's when we moved over to Zoom, and that worked for a bit. And eventually we moved over to Riverside, which is what we're recording on right now. So I'd say from my perspective as a producer, we've just gotten better and better in terms of audio quality. We've recently started leaning into video a lot more. So I think this has just become quite professional podcast from 4 years ago.
Well, doesn't it feel literally 6 months ago when we did the 100th episode with Mary, because Kieran, Chris, and Mike, you were all on that episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sabeen, were you on that one as well? I forget.
Maybe. Was that the one we talked about complications?
No, it was around that time. It was around that time, because we just started doing more video.
Yeah.
And
was that 2021?
Mary offered to guest host our 100th episode, and then
I feel like we just recorded that.
Yeah.
In the wild.
We also release a lot more too. I think when we started, we were putting out maybe one episode every 2 weeks, maybe one a week. And it's been a while now.
Maybe.
We've been putting out 2 every week.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually I want to ask you guys about that, because we could cut back. Do you think some of the feedback that I've gotten recently is you guys put out so much, it's hard to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think 2 a week is too much, or is 1 week a week enough? I just feel like if it's good and people are listening to it, like, yeah, let's put it out there. It's almost kind of like the news.
I think it's probably unrealistic for everyone to actually be able to keep up with everything, but I don't know if that's a reason to not put it all out.
That was actually my gut, that like two per week was too many. Like we should do 1 per week for a 1 hour show. I've kind of reversed course on that now. I just feel like there's too much good IR content to talk about. I don't know, like you almost just need to just try and keep up with it. And so as long as people are listening to it, like I know there's some BackTable enthusiasts out there who want to try and listen to every single episode. And so like you do get behind when we put out that much content. But at the same thing, I think there's like a large majority of our audience that doesn't listen to every single episode. And so they're just waiting for like their episodes to come up. And so I think the faster that we can get to their episodes, the better.
That's how I consume it. I have individual episodes that I have saved in a little playlist of ones that I need to listen to, or occasionally there will be a case that I haven't done in a while that will come up, and I'm like, oh, we got to have something on that. And then I'll just search it.
How often has this scenario come up with you? You're coming up with a case that you haven't done in a while, and you're like, oh, I wonder if we have a BackTable episode on that. And then you search the BackTable episode, and it's one that you have hosted.
It just happened more than once.
And you have zero recollection of that episode.
Yes. It just happened more than once. And let me tell you, I didn't listen to it. It's like, I think I probably better just read something. Yeah.
Aaron's like, what the hell?
Well, I just
thought, y'all are all
fired.
Yeah.
No, I need y'all.
Now, I've listened to my episode in a pinch, but it got to be a pretty bad pinch.
We've brought on a lot of guest hosts. How do you guys feel like that's... to me, it's amazing because
I like
it diversifies the voices. It's not just... like I always felt like for this kind of podcast, like it's good to have multiple hosts. I actually don't like podcasts. I just have one host, unless it's like comedy or entertainment or something. But, I know, Mike, you listen to a lot of sports podcasts. I kind of see sports and, medicine as sort of analogous in that we're professionals. But how do you feel like it is having like multiple voices versus just like one regular host?
Dude, I think it's great. I think the best predictor of whether an episode is going to be good or not is having two people on there who are interested in the topic and who want to talk about it. So the guest hosts are, this is something that they want to talk about, and they often have better insight into what to talk about than I would. I mean, I think about, certain episodes I did where I have no idea what I'm talking about. And, I've done a lot of research and read about the topic to try to make it a useful episode, but I don't have the nuance that somebody that does this every day is going to have. And so I think that, a lot of this is, these are just conversations. You don't have to be a skilled podcast host to have a good conversation.
Yeah, just show up and be curious, basically, is what I kind of tell all the hosts. Just that's all you got to be, is engaged. Whereas you're right. If I was listening to this guy, there's a podcast called Diary of a CEO, and he always says that like if he's not looking forward to a podcast, then he knows he shouldn't be doing that podcast, right? And I know we grumble sometimes about less exciting topics, but a lot of times they're surprising, right? You show up and you actually have a really good conversation with somebody, even though the topic you weren't like super interested in. Allie, has there been any like surprise connections or topics that have like kind of come up in that way for you with any of your guests or topics?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm not sure if this counts as one, because remember that one I did with Jeff Carr? Is that one going out, by the way? I don't know.
Oh God, that's a whole nother story.
Okay,
yeah,
so maybe I should.
Offline,
That's like,
I'll tell you about that.
All right.
No,
well,
it's time. It's coming out soon. But yeah.
Okay.
It's overdue. That's for sure.
I think we kind of went into that. We were planning to talk about something, and then he told me about something totally different that was relevant to my practice, and relevant to my future. And then he was able to expound on that a lot more. So it took a turn to something that I had no idea we were going to talk about, but ended up being extremely useful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I can't say more because it's like I'm not sure if the episode's going to come out and how edited it's going to be. You know what I mean?
Oh man, I want to.
Dude,
I want to listen
Can't
to
wait
this.
to listen to this episode now.
I have one that I was not
Yeah.
excited about doing that I absolutely loved. Was type B aortic dissections with Darren Class. I had no idea. I've never treated a dissection in my life, and I texted Allie, and she helped me out and gave me some things to talk about. And I was like, this is going to be really bad. And and again, another side point is that I think I personally am really bad at knowing how these things went. Like I'll think, it's like that was a terrible episode, and then I'll hear back, it's like, dude, that was amazing. That one though, I felt like we knocked it out of the park, and I didn't have any idea what I was talking about because Darren Class was just super great at talking about it. And I was like, I could just talk to this guy about this just for fun. So shout out to Allie for helping me through that.
Oh, anytime. I'm really glad that you actually enjoyed that episode. I thought it was an awesome episode.
I had a blast.
So one of the most common questions I get, and Chris, I want to ask you this because you've been, you and I talk about this pretty often, is how do we choose topics and guests to ensure that we're addressing like the most relevant issues in the field? I get that question a lot. It's like, how are you guys choosing these topics? But Chris, let's hear from you.
Well, so it's evolved over time. I mean, but I would say that originally it was just kind of like monkeys throwing darts, and then like slowly it evolved into like people who are really bad throwing darts. But now like I feel like our process is a little bit more focused in that we try and have a better idea. Like we listen to our audience. I would say like if anyone out there that is listening is like, man, I've always wanted them to do a podcast on this. If you write in and say, do this podcast, it gets taken 100% seriously. And there's like a 95% chance we will do that podcast. I mean, like we take listener feedback very seriously. That being said, we don't get a ton, but if someone says do a podcast on something, we usually do it. But also like, I mean, I feel like because we're all practicing interventional radiologists, we have our pulse on the things of like things people are struggling with, like turmoil within the field, or like if an interesting article comes out that people want to talk about, like we try and jump on that. But I think it's a combination of listener feedback, what we know to be exciting or what we know to be kind of like on the bleeding edge of interventional radiology. And then, I don't know, sometimes we just do the stuff that we want to do. I mean, sometimes if I have a topic that is like kind of like on my mind that I've always wanted to think about or dig into a little bit deeper, then we'll just do that. So it's a mix of like audience, hosts, and then kind of like what the field's telling us to do. Well, I'm interested to hear what other people think about like our process on that, because I think we're also about, can we drop anything? Can we talk about anything about Creator Weekend, about how it's about to get better?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah.
Well,
talk about Creator Weekend.
Real quick though, before I segue into Creator Weekend, I do want to talk a little bit about like our process, because I think people are curious. Like we do have sort of a democratic process where, you guys know this, we get an inbound lead that comes from the website, like, hey, I really want you guys to, cover this topic, or have you thought about this topic or this guest? And I tend to forward that to this panel right here. And then we email back and forth, or sometimes we talk on the phone about it to make sure that, A, it's something that we think is going to be impactful to the field, like it's actually an educational experience for our listeners, but also like we make sure that we have an engaged host, because if all 5 of us are like, nah, like meh, then we pass on it, because you got to have somebody who wants to have that conversation, right? Wouldn't you agree, Sabeen?
Yeah, totally. I mean, like I said, like I like to do topics that I'm very involved in, and it just makes the engagement, the conversation so much more, real. I think that's what we've always wanted in BackTable, like a real, BackTable conversation, like just shooting the shit, basically.
And I don't like it when folks come on the podcast and they're like really promotional of something, like I feel like that's one of our jobs, is to reel that stuff in and make sure it stays neutral, and that we're providing a neutral viewpoint and kind of like keeping those guys in check,
Yes.
I agree
it's
with
a
that.
delicate balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like it's a colleague who actually is out there doing something really good, and you do want to get that word out. But then there's other times where it's like a shameless self-promoter, right? And you kind of got to sort that out either before you bring them on or during the conversation. And if they're shameless self-promoting, then you kind of steer the conversation away from that. But yeah, that can be tricky because we don't always know. And that's where the network comes in play, right? If the 5 of us don't know, then maybe I go call somebody like, if it's vascular surgery world, I call Krishna Manava. If it's like IR world, I call Sonny Bagla, or, so they just get a word like on the street of who this person is, what their reputation is. I think that goes a long way too, is just making sure that we know who it is we're bringing on and not just some joker.
I will say that our process isn't perfect. Like, our process has definitely gotten better as far as like vetting our guests and vetting our topics. But, anyone who's looked at the BackTable catalog, if you do 500 episodes, like we've had some where we have some where we look back and we're like, okay, we could have done a better job with that. But I think, to our credit, like, I don't know. I think for the most part, we give people the benefit of the doubt. And then like afterwards, we're like, okay, we can improve after that. Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. So over the years, we've done, the other common question I get is, hey, why don't you just come record at this conference or this conference? And we've done that in the past. And Kieran, I want to get your viewpoint. How do you feel about these in-person episodes that we've done at conferences versus what we're doing right now? 99% of the time we're doing via teleconference. And that's how I'm going to segue Chris into Creator Weekend.
Cool.
I think it's tricky at the conferences. Usually we don't have like an ideal space. Usually there's stuff going on in the background and we're just like scrambling around trying to find a comfortable place to record. And sometimes it really works. I mean, people are excited because everyone's like, thinking about these topics for a couple days and it's on everyone's mind. But quality wise, I think we end up getting a better sounding episode when we do it via teleconference. What do you think?
It's no doubt.
I agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, it's not even close. Like the audio quality between like when we have like the controlled environment versus like the doing at the conference. But there's something to be said for like trying to capture some of the energy from the conference. Like one of the ones I really enjoyed doing, I did an interview with Don Garbett, like where we did it in person. And there's something kind of special and cool about those episodes. I
agree.
That like, that you're like just actually getting a chance to like be next to that person and like conviving, kind of like taking the energy of the conference and kind of bringing that to the podcast. But by and large, I think like our audio quality is definitely better whenever we have Kieran like commanding the pieces.
Yeah. I mean, Ali, you've done some in person. How did you feel like the vibe of those were versus remote?
I like the in-person ones because my kids don't come interrupt them. So that's a definite plus. But the interactions with the guests seem a little bit more natural when you're talking to them in person than over Zoom or over Riverside. I'm excited. That's why I'm excited for the studio. I think that's going to be the best of both worlds.
I know.
Yeah. So to let the audience know something that we're excited about, I'm sitting in the new BackTable Studio located here in San Diego, and we are going to be doing some more in-person events. The first of which will be in 2 weeks, November 2nd, 3rd, all about HCC, hepatocellular carcinoma. And it's a multidisciplinary event where we'll have IOs, IRs, including some, famous people that have been on the show before, including, Tyler Sandow and Zach Berman and Sid. Actually, Sid hasn't been on before, but Sabeen Dhand will be there.
He is famous.
And so, Sabeen is definitely famous. And, we also will have hepatobiliary surgeons on, we'll have med-oncs on, and this is actually a way in which we can expand beyond just IR and IO for the flagship show into some other specialties like oncology and surgery. And we're really excited. There's no audience, there's no live audience. So like Kieran was saying, the downside of one of the reasons why I say we don't really like to do them at conferences is because of the distraction, and you spend a lot of time trying to figure out where to record and then also wrangling the docs from whatever they're doing. Sabeen, I don't know if you remember the Argonne one we did where, we were just trying to find you. At the booth. Yeah. And we were just
that was good. I did that one.
It was good. I mean, then that was great because we got to hang out in Sabeen in person for the first time. So there's that upside.
That was the first time you guys met?
Yeah.
In
That's
person.
So cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
it was cool.
Yeah, so it look, there's that upside of doing it in person. So we want to capture that experience, but have it be undistracted. So Creator Weekend, we bring these people together, and they can have these conversations a little bit more intimate. It's in studio. It's in a controlled environment, like Kieran was saying would be important. And so we're excited about that. And we plan on doing that for multiple topics, multiple specialties, because we have the ENT show, the urology show, OBGYN, MSK. And there's a lot of opportunity there to get those going. So that's what we got coming in 2025. And Sabeen will be joining us for the first one. Hopefully Ali for the second one. Chris, Mike, we'll get you in there as well. Or just come out and we'll just do something like we'll do the 600th episode here,
Well, I mean, I actually have pretty
that.
Yeah, I'm having like serious FOMO about missing like the first creator weekend. There's no doubt about that. I hate to think that I would continue to keep missing them. I would like to be there for multiple creator weekends. But so going back to like how we choose the topics, I think like this is like going to be like another a cool iteration of like how we start doing things like in the future. Like one of the things like we haven't asked the question, but like episodes or series that you're really proud of. One of the ones that I was really proud of is when I did like a 2-hour or 2.5-hour stretch with Emmett Linsky, and we broke it up into like 4 different episodes, like Tips University. And as far as I'm concerned, like that is like some very, very good high quality stuff. And so basically we're like, you're now doing like HCC and you're covering it from like soup to nuts. Like, I don't know, that to me feels like it's like the BackTable one-offs are always good. And like, I think you can get a lot of good content out of that. But then like now people can go and be like, I want to know like basics from HCC, like if you're a trainee or if you're in residency or fellowship or whatever, or if you want to know it's like on the bleeding edge, like what they're doing at like, Northwestern, Hopkins, or I don't want to name the places, but
Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Yeah, Baton Rouge. But if you want to see what's going on the bleeding edge of like HCC treatment, then you can also come to like BackTable to get that. And so I don't know, I think it's going to be very cool, and I hope that like we do a lot more deep dives, like where we take one topic and then just like dig in and just cover it like super, super well.
You're right, Chris. It's like Tips University, but like Creator Weekend, actually, I guess you could say maybe was born out of Tips University in a sense.
Yes.
Like that's probably where the idea originally was planted, and then, it's grown from there. It's just having these like series where you, like you said, you take a deep dive, like what Ali was saying before, like that's a really popular series. And if we can kind of continue that trend almost with like seasons around a topic would be, I think, pretty cool.
But I mean, like the deal is like, so we did Tips University, like I recorded that in one stretch with Linsky. So like we basically like had to like block out a amount of time for me and him to talk for like 2 or 3 hours, 2 people totally remote. And that was like what we were capable of episode, like, early, 200s or early 100s. But this is like the triple Lindy off the high board. I mean, like, right, like you're like bringing in like, so people are coming from all over the country to come to the BackTable Studio, like, so just the organizational feat alone, it just, to me, it like just speaks to like the commitment that like this team has had to like putting out like better and better educational content year in, year out. I mean, like we just wouldn't be that happy if we continue to like keep doing one-offs, and like, I don't know, like I feel very proud that like we're always getting better. And to me, this is like, I mean, I don't know how we'll see how it comes out, but I'm very optimistic.
That's right. We're sending everybody back to school. Just like Sid.
Oh, man, good throwback. Oh, yeah. Thank you for catching it.
Okay, so we're actually close to the hour. I want to... Chris, you actually mentioned this. One of your favorite episodes or series was the one with Linsky. I kind of want to go around and see if everybody has a favorite. Ali, you don't have to. You can...
Are we talking about other people's episodes or our own?
Well,
no, it could also be your own. It can also be your own.
So
Mine is Tips University. Tips University.
Tips University is the one that I got the most use out of. I listened to all of those.
Yeah.
I really like Ali's glue episode.
That was really good.
Super good.
Thank you, guys.
With Haskell. Yeah.
Man.
What about personally, ones that you've done, like conversations you've had?
I feel like I'm going to be leaving out people at the beginning. I had a lot of fun with Peter Bream and Peter Horner doing a tips conversation.
Yeah,
with Eastern Pete and Western, which we did over cocktails, which is ironic. But I recently did a biliary episode with Brian Holly where I had a blast.
Nice.
Oh, I listened to that one. Super good. Super, super good.
I should listen to it.
That topic was overdue, right? We'd been talking about doing that topic for years.
Bizarre.
And finally, just... I guess it was Lesney, right? Lesney suggested, him as a guest because we asked Mark to cover that topic. He's like, no. Brian Hawley's your guy. It was Brian Hawley, right?
Brian Hawley.
Yeah. I think and we're making that into a course for BackTable Plus. So that was really
nice.
well. I really like those algorithm episodes where we have somebody just cover how they do something from A to Z. Like that to me is like that's our sweet spot for BackTable, don't you think?
They become little nuggets, right? Little nuggets that you can listen to before you're about to do a case.
Exactly. It's kind of like a living version of a JVIR article or techniques article or something, you know what I mean? It's just
TVIR.
You get it firsthand, right? I think the five of us know, like I have like a template for those kinds of episodes, like how to cover a procedure and try to get all those nuggets out of like where you see challenges happening, because that's the difference between what these conversations are versus an article. An article, you can't dive deeper, right? You just got what's on paper. But with these interview, you guys are in there like kind of picking apart what they're saying, trying to get even more nuggets, that's what I really like about the podcast medium.
How about Sabeen? Did you have a favorite?
I don't know why this one comes to mind, but the one I did, there's a stroke that I did with like co-aspiration versus aspiration. And I don't know, I think I came into it thinking this is going to be like, these neuro IRs and they're going to be like dry and I don't know. And it was like it was a co-guest episode and I had a lot of fun with it. I came out of there, I was like, this is awesome. It was a great episode.
Super good. That was really well done.
I think I recorded one episode early on with Luke Wilkins where I woke up at 5 a.m. to record this just because like we had been trying to figure out times and I think it was like that and maybe I was just loopy because I was up so early, but like it was so fun. I think we were just giggling the whole time. So in terms of funness, I think that was probably my most fun episode.
That was an algorithm one too, right? Like it was an algorithm for PAD. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I found that one very.
I just remember. So I'm a friend of the show now. That joke that you guys.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
I did look up my favorite episode 243, Better Abscess Drainage with John Pavlis, and I know Barraza hosted it, and then I think you hosted it too, Aaron. Right? That was co-host one.
Yeah, it was co-host one. Yeah.
Okay.
John.
One. I mean, did I learn something from it? Sure. But like for me, like for entertainment value, I actually have that one on my playlist. Sometimes if I'm just going on a run or something and I just want to listen to something, I find that one just as entertaining as like any of the stuff that I listen to like in my regular podcast library. Like I find that one so much fun to listen to. Like to me, like if I'm like sending a guest an episode, like where we're trying to capture like the essence of like I think BackTable, awesome. Like we try and strike like a conversational tone, like, right. Like, it's just two colleagues talking about it. And that's the one I'll send people. And I think like there's like a lot of good Barraza out there, but that's like classic Barraza.
Peak Barraza.
Yeah, it's peak Barraza.
Yeah. I'm going to listen to this one.
It was good. This one's good. I was there for it. It was funny. You should, Mike. You should. You'll learn something.
Maybe Kieran can remaster the Barraza episodes just for Barraza with like him in like, deep throat voice.
Yeah. Right.
Like just like send them just to Mike so he can hear the content, but doesn't have to hear his own voice.
What voice would you like, Mike? Like for
yours? No.
Yeah.
I want Anisha's.
Oh yeah. Anisha's got a good voice. You got a great voice.
I want it done in Anisha's voice. And also with his intellect.
Yeah.
Just rephrase everything.
Yeah. If he could just like redo mine, that'd be good.
Yeah. Great.
Aaron, can you put a little light on like maybe people who don't know like when like every time a BackTable episode plays, it's like this week on the BackTable episode, like where that comes from and like what role that guy plays in the company?
Yeah. So this week on the BackTable podcast is what's crazy to me is it's the original recording from our first episode.
Yep.
That Anish recorded with us and he put that together and that's how he started it out. And I was like, this is kind of cool because it's like a piece of BackTable history. So we, when we got Descript, we actually ran it through Studio Sound, which is the software which kind of cleans it up, and it's processed a little bit, but it's still the original Anish saying this week on the BackTable podcast from the first episode. And so Anish is my co-founder, and he's basically he's the president of BackTable. He runs more of the business side, and but yeah, he's been with us the whole way. He was the one that pitched the idea of the podcast to Chris and I sort of reluctantly was like, okay, sure, let's give it a try as content marketing, and then it took off. So here we are.
Can we tell one other BackTable story real quick?
Yeah.
You want to tell, like, I know we don't use the extra music by, oh man, what's the band?
Ripperoo?
Yeah, Ripperoo.
Skeptic Moon,
Ripperoo by Skeptic Moon. I thought that was always cool. We were a little bit shy about telling people, I think, like where the story behind the audio, but I mean, now I think it's fair to tell that story.
Yeah, no, so Dan Z was on the show for the Western Angio episode. This is like in 2020 or something like that.
Yeah.
And he mentioned that his son was a music student at Tulane University in New Orleans. And the three of us kind of bonded over New Orleans because Chris was practicing at the time there, and I went to med school there. And we were talking about it, and he's like, yeah, he's got this band. It's called Skeptic Moon, and they got songs on Spotify. And so I think Chris and I, like, immediately after that interview, like, went and checked it out, and we were like, this sounds really good. And so we reached out to Dan afterwards and was like, hey, will you introduce us to your son? And we sent him and his bandmates some hoodies, some BackTable hoodies. And in exchange, they allowed us to use their song for like 300 episodes.
Yeah, I always thought that was it. That was so cool. But like, also, like, me and Aaron were struggling to find like good
music.
Like, we disagreed on like the BackTable music, and so like it was funny that like it just all kind of came together with like this connection through Dan Z and through Dan Z's kid and the New Orleans and like the Skeptic Moon, the Ripperoo by Skeptic Moon. So I always thought that was like super cool BackTable lore.
Yeah, and then so like Kieran, you want to tell them how we recently updated it?
Yeah. So shout out to the rest of our audio team. By the way, it's not just me. We've also got Aaron Bowles and Josh Spencer and Josh McWhirter. But Aaron Bowles, actually, he's a musician. He produces electronic music and such. And so the new theme song that we have for BackTable was produced by him.
Yeah, super cool. In-house.
And there was a lot of iterations. There was a lot of back and forth. And I was kind of like, hey, can we go with like some Trent Reznor vibes? And it that didn't really fit. And then like, yeah, but he hit the nail on the head. I love it. I don't know how you guys feel, but I absolutely love the new. I loved Ripperoo, but it ran its course, and now it's time to it was time for an update. So, but I'm proud that Bowles created it. It came from BackTable, and I'm hoping that we can keep that trend going as we launch new shows.
What about the hoodies? Where do the hoodies come from? Because everyone loves the hoodies.
That's true.
Yeah. So that's
we're really a hoodie company that sometimes puts out podcasts.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I just need to charge for the hoodies. We don't make any money on the hoodies, but yeah. So the hoodies came from COVID. Really, I was trying to create some swag, and I went to this store in Dallas that it was called Blue Frog. Do you guys have Blue Frogs in your cities? No, it's like this franchise where you can. It's like for like kids football teams or baseball teams, like they'll make your jerseys for you and stuff like that. Well, for me, it's all about the feel, like with clothes. Like I have to feel, so I can't order stuff online. Like I have to feel it. And I was in the store and I was feeling all the garments that they had. And I came across this Bella Canvas sweatshirt. I was like, whoa, this feels amazing. Same with the t-shirt, Sabeen, has that, it's like a perfect combination of cotton, polyester. And I ordered some hoodies, and Gopi and I started wearing. It's all we wore during COVID. And then I started sending them to you guys, and sure enough, everybody was just wearing it constantly. And then we started sending them to all the guests, right?
Yeah.
And hosts, and people would show up at conferences in them and stuff. And then like once we launched ENT and urology, it became a thing. But we had to stop sending it to every guest because it just got too expensive because they're not cheap. But I love that people love them. I love that people wear them because it really does help promote the show.
Can I ask, have you guys, because I have spotted anyone wearing a hoodie out in the wild?
At conferences.
I was walking down 6th Avenue in Manhattan and just like did a double take because someone walked right past me wearing a BackTable hoodie.
That
Oh,
is
that's
awesome.
nice.
Did you ask him?
No, I think like
That's
maybe
not a
like
New York thing, right?
30 seconds or like 10 seconds later, I was like, wait, was that a BackTable hoodie? And then I thought it'd be a little creepy if I ran after them. I was like, hey, wait, there you go. And
So there's a great story about with Alex Kim. Chris, I told you this story, right?
Yeah, you told me. It's good.
So my wife's cousin, they were vacationing in Turks and Caicos, and they were on the beach, and they said, yeah, we saw, it's so random, we saw this person running down the beach in a BackTable hoodie in Turks and Caicos. And they're like, so crazy. Like, that's like amazing that people are wearing this all over the place. And I was like, oh, that is cool. Did you find out who it was? And they're like, nah, we just kind of said, hey, we know BackTable, and that was it. So then that was like 3 years ago. So then I'm at SAR last March, and I'm at Starbucks in line. I run into Alex Kim, and he's like, hey, man, I got a funny story for you. He's like, I was in Turks and Caicos, and I was running down the beach in my BackTable hoodie, and these people came up to me and was like, hey, I know the founder of BackTable. He's like, it was so random. It was so I couldn't wait to like run into you and tell you about it. So I don't know. It was just fun to make the connection there, you know? But yeah, people are seeing them in random places. All right. I know we're at the hour, guys, and everybody's got little ones that are biting at the bit to start their Sunday.
To end our Sunday.
Any last words before we move on to episode 501?
I love BackTable.
We love you too, Sabeen.
I wanted to, like, Kieran kind of touched on it, but Kieran, our audio engineer and like the chief of like making all the audio here, I want to say like thanks to him, the Joshes and all the BackTable audio team that like makes it sound good. Like if like we talk about audio and like we talk about the quality of it, like that means a big deal to us. I always like consider that like one of the differentiating factors of like our podcast amongst like other educational, and it's not lost on me that like we were kind of lost in the woods and then like we found Kieran and like brought us to the promised land as far as like, I mean, now like you just expect our audio to be good, and when it's not, it's a little cringe. And so, you know, it's, but I know that there's a lot of work that goes onto that. I've seen like just small pieces of it. So appreciate it, Kieran. Thanks for making me and the other BackTable hosts sound good.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm super grateful to be part of the team. It's a dream job. I love it.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, rate the podcast 5 stars, and share with a friend. If you have any questions or comments, direct message us at @_BackTable on Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn. BackTable is produced and hosted by myself, Aaron Fritts, and co-hosts
Chris Beck,
Sabeen Dhand, Michael Barraza,
and Ali Baheti.
Our audio team is led by Kieran Gannon, with support from
Josh McWhirter,
Aaron Bowles,
Josh Spencer.
Design and digital marketing led by Brian Schmitz.
Social media and PR by Ann Dang, Manisha Naganathanahali,
and Manbir Singh Sandhu.
Administrative support provided by Jamila Kennebrew
and Judy Dela Cruz.
Thanks again for listening.